Ah, my head's cut off. Pizza revisited. Pizza. I'm revisiting my pizza video. Nearly a year ago now, I made a terrible pizza video where I fumbled and I wasn't at all experienced with hand-shaped pizza. I made some banging scrambled eggs earlier, and now I can't even stretch a pizza dough. I f***ing torn a hole in it again! Because my experience came from Papa John's, and at Papa John's we put the pizzas on a screen, and those screens go into an oven. This is the equivalent to putting a frozen pizza on a baking tray. However, I've got a new job where I'm now handcrafting pizzas and I'm using a pizza peel. So today we're going to make a dough, we're going to proof the dough, we're going to stretch the dough. We're going to make some sauce, better than before. We're going to top it, we're going to slide it into the oven, we're going to make a beautiful Neapolitan pizza. Let's do it. I'm using pizza flour. You can just use strong white flour. The strong just suggests that it's got high fibre and protein, and this is good for making pizza. It's also good for making bread. You can't really go wrong with it. It's just, I just have pizza flour. You know those videos where people are like, oh yeah, you can film, you can make a film on anything. You can make a film on your phone. It's not about the equipment. But I'm going to be using my 10,000 pound camera. Or the cooking videos where they're like, it doesn't matter what equipment you can use, you can do everything by hand. However, I'll use my 200 pound stand mixer. I feel like that right now with this pizza flour, like, a lot of people aren't going to have just pizza flour, right? They're going to have strong white flour. But you can use white flour. So anecdote over. This recipe makes 2 doughs, and it's adapted from my one at work. We're going to weigh out 500 grams of flour. Not only because it's a nice round number, because that's what conventional bags of flour come in. I can't turn on my scales. Make sure you zero your scales when you put your bowl on. That way you're not accounting for the weight of the bowl. Be as precise as you can. You may think that a few grams of flour won't make much of a difference. It can. I'm using Alison's Easy Bake Instant Dry Yeast. You can use fresh yeast, but the recipe changes. I'm using dry yeast. And I'm putting 2 grams. What does the yeast need? Yeast needs food. We're getting sugar. 2 grams. The yeast and sugar are like yin and yang. The sugar eats the yeast feeds the sugar. Other way around. However, you don't want too much sugar because it's just going to be sweet. But you don't want too much yeast because if there's not enough sugar, the yeast is going to run out of food and your dough is going to collapse. Flour, yeast and sugar. That should weigh at most 505 grams. Salt. 10 grams. But you want 10 grams of salt, you want 10 grams of oil, because oil is a liquid and the metric system means we can interchange that. So 10 milliliters of oil if you so wish. Water is arguably the most important part because dough hydration is a crucial part of pizza dough. Why do I say that? Well, you know the lepparding that you get. That's the term when pizza dough has those black spots, the burnt spots. That's due to the dough hydration, and that can make or break a good pizza dough. We're going for Neapolitan pizza dough, which is just iconic for its lepparding. Lepparding is harder to achieve in a home oven because home ovens typically reach 230, 240 C. Here's the Fahrenheit version. And lepparding can usually only be achieved in around 300 degree ovens at the least. Typical pizza ovens, they'll hit like 500 C. Not only does this bake a pizza quicker, but you also get those beautiful burnt spots, which, despite being burnt, they taste incredible and they really just change the experience of eating pizza. We're doing a home oven, so we're going to try our best to get that, but we'll see what happens. So I've got 350 milliliters of warm water. You can use cold water. I'm using warm because I want to immediately activate the yeast, which will allow for the proofing process and fermentation to begin immediately, so then I can eat this at the end of the day. Why would you use cold water? Cold water slows that fermentation process down. Typically, you want, for Neapolitan pizza dough, you want to create it 2 to 4 days in advance because you want to make the dough and just chill it. You want to put ice, you want to put cold water in it, put it in the fridge, really slow that process down. because the slower it is, the more that fermentation from the yeast creates flavour in the dough profile. By doing it quickly, you're just skipping a lot of that. But that's fine, because you want to eat pizza tonight. You don't want to eat it in 4 days' time. We're going to mix this together, and then we're going to turn it out onto the surface and start kneading it for 15 minutes. It might feel a bit sticky, but that's completely fine. As we knead it, I'm going for a hand kneading technique. As we knead it, the gluten proteins are going to develop, and it's going to make it less sticky as time goes by. But you just have to commit. So I'm going to knead this for the next 15 minutes. I'm going to turn it out, and then I'll see you in a moment. Through the secret of filmmaking, here's one I made earlier. Your dough will produce 2, maybe 3 balls of dough. So what we want to do is we want to take the dough, the total dough, divide it into 250 to 285 gram ball portions. With my dough, this got me 3 because I slightly overcalculated it. If you've added a bit more flour or not enough flour, this will change. But you want 2 balls of dough, really, 250 grams at the least. So weigh it out. And after you've weighed it out, what we want to do with your dough mass is you want to pull it into a ball. So really just like pull it, tuck it. Another easy technique is to flatten it. That way you can sort of pull it a bit more. Be gentle because you will just tear it. Tearing it isn't a big deal. It's just inconvenient. So, you got that. What we're going to do, fold it, pinch it, fold it, pinch it, and repeat that. I'm going to tuck it in. Do that a couple of times. But now you've got a nice supple ball of dough that you can throw around, catch it, throw it at the ceiling. But what you want to do with these balls of dough, you want to now flour them appropriately. Whatever vessel that you're putting these in, they're going to need to proof. And you don't want them sticking together. Because you don't want to be the guy in the middle of a pizza rush serving 200 customers within 1 hour, pulling pizza dough after pizza dough that are stuck together, having to cut them out. And that just slows your process down. You don't want to be doing that. You've got pizzas to make. You've got orders to fill. You've got tickets to create. People are hungry. Please don't stick the dough together. So to avoid that, put a bit of flour down. Doesn't matter what flour. You can use the flour you used earlier. But just roll it around. You can't even see what I'm doing. Roll it around. Cover the dough in flour, including the sides. You want to get every possible surface on this thing covered in flour, because that reduces the chance that it sticks together. So now we have 2 balls of dough covered in flour, ready to proof. You can put these in a tray. I'm going to be putting mine into tubs because I don't have a tray. And then you want to make sure that it's airtight, because if it's not airtight, it's going to dry out, and that's just going to be unpleasant when you come to forming it later. So make it airtight, whether that's in an airtight container or wrapping it with plastic wrap and cling film. Just contain it. Now it's up to you entirely. You can leave this in the fridge for 12, 24 hours, however long you want. Let it proof in the fridge and it'll taste better, but it's slower. It's significantly slower. I'm leaving mine out. Leaving it out at roughly like 20, 22 degrees, it's going to proof much quicker. It's going to be softer in a much shorter time span, much easier to work with. Better if you want to do this for your dinner tonight. So I'm going to let that proof, I'm going to tidy up, and I'm going to come back when it comes to shaping this dough. So it's been a multiple amount of hours, probably about 6, and my dough's looking a lot better. So now I'm going to get prepared. I've gone out and bought myself some ingredients. I've got some tomato sauce, I've got pepperoni, I've got chilies, I've got mozzarella. And I'm going to improve the sauce a bit because it's pretty much just, so this is just olive oil, salt, sugar, tomato and onions. I'm going to put some other stuff into it and also prep my chilies and heat up the oven. I'm using a fan assisted oven. I put it on fan and top down grill mode to the hottest temperature I can do, which is 230°C. And while that's heating up, let's prepare our ingredients. So first up, I'm doing chilies. Chilies are simple. I'm just going to cut them into little rings. Rings. But now I'm just going to season my tomato sauce. I'm going to put a bit more than I think I'll need. And I'm going to season it. Salt, basil, oregano. I'm going to use a lot of oregano because I want it to smell a bit fresh. Just a bit of garlic. That's a lot of garlic. You will need some flour on the worktop for this because if you're using a pizza peel, you don't want the dough to get stuck. And what I'll be doing is I'll be pushing in the middle of the pizza dough and forming a crust. So I'm just going to use a couple fingers like that and just pushing in the middle. Sort of like that. And it creates this kind of concave shape. It looks like a blood cell. Flip it over, do it again. So that's helped us form a crust as well as like a thinner body. So I'm just going to palm the middle a bit, make sure it's nice and even. And now with 2 knuckles, we're going to start pulling it out and start working the edges and slowly stretch it out. We can get a little bit crazy with it and start spinning it. And you'll realise pizza dough is actually quite strong. And voila! We have un pizza. Compare that to my previous video where I couldn't even stretch it on the desk before it thaw. And now I can confidently spin it. I'm going to use my ladle. So I'm just going to get a nice ladle of sauce. I probably could have done with adding some extra water to this sauce just to make it a little bit runnier and more spreadable. Because this is mostly a pasta sauce, not a marinara. But it'll be fine. So I'm just going to spoon some sauce on. I'm going to put cheese first. I'm not going to be too generous because I don't want too much cheese to overwhelm the flavour of the dough and the sauce. Too much cheese, when it starts cooling down, it solidifies and it will just come off the top of the pizza. I'm going to put 10 slices of pepperoni. I'm going to start at the top of the pizza, put one opposite, 2 more in between those, make a nice little ring. So I'm just going to grab my chili peppers here, put some chili on there, and I've created a nice pepperoni pizza. If you're using a pizza peel like this, you just want to commit. You can't hesitate. If you show the pizza weakness, it will know. But the trick is you want to go at a sort of shallow angle, almost 45 degrees. If you go too high, then it's not going to slide under. But if you go too narrow, then you're not going to get much force behind it. So start by lifting up a bit of the crust and just commit. I'm just going to stretch it out a bit. And we're going to do that exact same process, but in reverse, to get it into the oven. But I need a bit more space. I'm going to put it directly onto this upside down baking tray I've got acting as a pizza steel. And now it's baking. I let it go a bit longer than I admittedly should have. I was hoping that it would get some leoparding, but because my oven's not hot enough, it just went golden, unfortunately. So I'm going to retrieve this. I need a plate as well to put it on. It is a little overcooked. I could probably get a really good thumbnail with this, actually. Yeah, I definitely overcooked that. That's still fine. Something I didn't improve on since my last video is actually getting a pizza cutter. It might be a bit surprising, but I don't eat pizza at home. So I'm going to cut this with a knife. So you can see there, it's a little thin. It's like a thin crust pizza. The crust is a little airy. It's okay. Tastes so much better than my last one. It's thin and crispy. I like it. It's just like, it's a textbook slice. It holds itself, but it's thin and crispy. It's good, and it tastes nice. But it's just like, I can do this. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you're following this, then I hope your pizza turns out good.